Hi everyone, so it's already getting dark. Today is the 10th of February and in like 4 days it's supposed to be Valentine's Day. So why not read some romance? I don't usually read romance. Romance isn't like my genre. I'm not a romance booktuber, but I have been interested in a few books. I have read one book by Colleen Hoover recently. Wasn't a big fan, but I want to read other things by her. And I want to include different types of romance books. What I usually do first is look at my physical TBR, because I do want to read more books on my physical TBR. I turn on the light so you can see me better. Okay, I found a book here because as I said in my previous video, I've been organizing this house and I have found a few books. A few of them I brought up here and I put them on this shelf. Some are still downstairs because I'm not sure if I'm going to add to my personal TBR. They were my mom's books. A lot of them were romance, I think a few were thrillers. There were a lot of Danielle Steele, and I think Danielle Steele is a romance author. But the ones that I brought up were The Tao of Pooh. I think this is nonfiction, like very philosophical. I found a Stephen King book, so that's great. Different seasons. I think there is, I don't remember the title, but a famous movie is based on one of the stories in here. I will put it on the screen. And I found a Ken Follett book, The Man from St. Petersburg, and I found Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, which is huge, and I was never going to read this. Between the ones that I found, this was one of the exciting books. I also found this book, which is random. Marry Me, Courtships and Proposals of Legendary Couples. I think this is cute because they are all about famous couples. The table of contents. We have Frida Kahlo with Diego Rivera, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio, Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier of Monaco, Bill Clinton and Hillary, Zelda and F. Scott Fitzgerald. We have Martin Luther King too. I think this could be interesting. There are pictures. Maybe I'll read this one, you know, just a story a day. But yeah, these are the books I just wanted to show you randomly. I put them on this little shelf over here. And these are the only books that I was instantly interested in, so I still have to look at the other ones properly. But we have this. We have this. Oh my god. Yes. Okay. So from my physical TBR, I also have a Nicholas Sparks book. The Best of Me. This is in Italian, Il meglio di me. And I have had this one for such a long time. The reason why I have this is because a lot of my friends in middle school for some reason really liked him and his stories. And I decided to buy one and I never read it. But I think now it's time. And I think this is like one of the most popular authors who writes romances, you know? So I'm gonna add this and this, you know, randomly. I'm just gonna read these stories. So what I wanna read is another Colleen Hoover book because I wanna give her another chance, as I said. Then I wanna read a taboo romance. Let's see how I feel about that. And then a more recent, well-loved romance. So what I thought is I want to read, for what concerns a Colleen Hoover book, I want to read Regretting You, because between the titles that I've read, I know that Verity is more like a thriller, so let's not read that right now. And then the other book that I was interested in was It Ends With Us. But between It Ends With Us and Regretting You, I feel more attracted to Regretting You at the moment, because the only thing that I know about this book is it's about a mother and a daughter and their respective relationships with people. I want to read more like mother-daughter stories. Then for the taboo romance, I know that a popular author is Penelope Douglas. And I'm going to say Birthday Girl because I feel like that's the most popular one. The only thing that I know is that it's about this girl who has a relationship with the father of her ex. So there's an age gap. The famous, well-loved romance, I have decided to read Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which is the first book in a trilogy. It's about the Brown sisters. The second book is already out. The third one is coming out this year, and everyone seems to love these books. It's also written by a Black author, Talia Hibbert. Let's begin with Regretting You. So I'm going to listen to that while I organize stuff. As I said, I'm organizing a lot of stuff. You can see much. There's not any light in here, but we're currently fixing this room. We took out the carpet. I have filmed some clips and we'll see if I'll insert some. So I read the first 5 chapters of Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. First of all, this book is about, as I said, a mother and a daughter, and it's a dual perspective. We have chapters from the mom's point of view and other chapters from the daughter's point of view. The first chapter is actually a flashback when the mom was 17 and she got pregnant. And then we see the story take place 17 years later. The mom has been with her husband for so long and they never had any more kids. She is struggling with finding herself because she never actually went to college or found a real hobby. She just has been a housewife for the last 17 years. So she's kind of asking herself what she wants to do now that her daughter is going to get out of the house soon because she's 17 now, and she's struggling with that. And the daughter has a crush on a boy whose dad back in the day was a drug dealer, so the dad isn't too okay with that. Now with the mother, something happened in chapter 5, and if something happens to these people that's a little bit too convenient for me, we'll see. That's why I wanted to make this update. I'm not sure if I like this. Hi everyone, so it's a few days later and I finished Regretting You. I also finished another book. I'm going to talk about that right now, but let's start with Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. I did end up giving this book 3 stars because I did enjoy it a little bit more than Hopeless. I have less complaints. But at the same time, because I have less complaints, I feel like it's not going to be stuck in my mind for, you know, some time. I think I'm going to forget about this story real soon. But I did enjoy it a little bit more. 3 stars. I am going to give Colleen Hoover another chance because I really want to read Verity. My complaints are because this huge thing happened at the beginning of the book, everything else that happened after that was so predictable. Second complaint is Clara. I don't like Clara at all. I don't like the mother. I don't like any character in particular. I think I enjoyed Miller the most. At first I wasn't sure because there was the whole ex situation. Is there cheating? I don't know. But then halfway through, I was cool with him. I think he's my favorite because he really started telling Clara that she's kind of exaggerating, and I like that because Clara was exaggerating, was behaving like such a teenager. The characters do highlight the fact that she is turning 17, so she's not 16 anymore. Like, that is a big change. I don't think there's a big change between 16 and 17, honestly, but she was a teenager And she really was going through it. She wasn't communicating with her mom. There was the whole situation in which she was angry with her mom, and the mom didn't make it any better because she was keeping things from her. And I'm like, tell your daughter, tell your kids, communicate. And if you don't like the miscommunication trope, you may not like this, but I'm not calling this miscommunication. I'm calling this no communication whatsoever, because they weren't communicating for a time in this book, and that bothered me so much because that made Clara angry with her mom because she didn't understand what the situation was. She was jumping to conclusions. I did not like that at all. So third complaint, which is not as big, is the fact that Clara kept forgetting about her friend Lexi. And I'm like, okay, the first time, the second time, okay, because you've had a bad time, something really bad happened, so you are forgetful, I don't know, but you kept forgetting about your friend. that was really bothering me for some reason. But yeah, those are all my complaints, and at the end it was okay. It was okay. 3 stars is okay. Update on Marry Me. I am slowly reading this. I am on page 53. Okay. And this was written in 1994, I believe. This was gifted to my parents when they got married. So, I don't know. As I said, I found this in the basement. And it was interesting because it's about, you know, famous couples. But this is really, really outdated. You can totally tell this was written in the 20th century. Really. And this is full of heterosexual couples, obviously. So that made me start thinking, I am not reading any queer romances. And I have read queer romances in the past. That made me think that I really should read a queer romance in this vlog. So what I did is I read Autoboyography by Christina Lauren. I'm going to talk about this in a couple of minutes, but let me just give you an update on this book. These authors really highlight body image, and there is misogyny. We have Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera. Diego Rivera is a devoted lover of women. He often found those affections returned, even though he was overweight and incontestably ugly with fuzzy hair and bulging eyes. Frida Kahlo, on the other hand, is bright and a definite tomboy who ran around with troublemakers. Obviously, whatever the women do, they do to please the man. These men were all toxic, or at least they are writing them as toxic, because we have Sigmund Freud here. Freud was intensely jealous, forbidden Martha to go ice skating for fear that she would hold hands with a man. This, of course, is, I'm not saying that it's the author's fault. It could simply be that these men were toxic. F. Scott Fitzgerald ordered Zelda to marry him at once. Then we have Lyndon Baines Johnson, I think he was a president, yeah. Claudia Lady Bird Taylor. Lyndon made it clear he wasn't going to be put off one more moment longer because she was putting off the wedding. We either do it now or we never will, he said. And if you say goodbye to me, it just proves to me that you don't love me enough to dare to. And I just can't bear to go and keep on wondering if it will ever happen. If someone ever said that to me, this book is so short. I could read this in an hour, but quotes like these make me put the book down, you know? So my battery is dying. I'm going to talk about Autoboyography in a little bit. Let me just charge this. I'm back. I am going to talk about Autobiography now by Christina Lauren. I only read another book by them. It was in a holidays. I read it in December as well, and I felt that that book was very average. I think that my feelings towards In a Holidays and Regretting You are basically the same, because I don't think it will stick with me, the story. Now, I read another Christina Lauren book, Autobiography, and it was much better. I gave it 4 stars. Let me just tell you what this story is about. This story is about Tanner Scott, a bisexual teenager in his last year of high school, who moves from California to Utah. His entire family moves there. So it's a big change, and he temporarily goes back into the closet. He doesn't really want to tell anyone that he's bisexual because there's a huge Mormon LDS community there. They're very religious, so he doesn't really want to be put on the spot, and he keeps it a secret. Only his family knows. They're very supportive, by the way. There's this last semester, in which they have to draft a book. They have to write a book in a few months, and he participates in that, and he falls in love with his tutor. His name is Sebastian Brother, the Mormon prodigy who sold his own seminar novel the year before and who now mentors the class. So he graduated high school a year before, and he did the same class, and his book is getting published, and now he's helping the seniors to do their own story. And you can tell it's a romance because Tanner falls in love with Sebastian. And there's a lot of talk about religion. It's not judgy at all. I mean, it shows the good, it shows the bad. And at the end of the audiobook, because I read this as an audiobook, the authors there was an interview, a short interview with the person who read the audiobook, and they talked about the research that they had. I think one of the authors is bisexual, I believe, and the other one lived in Utah, or at least they know people who have, and so they've done some research into that. They're not like looking down on religions, but at the same time they highlight certain stuff and the difficulties of queer people in religious communities. I didn't like that it was kind of insta-lovey, to be honest. It was a bit insta-lovey. But I think Tanner knew him from previous years, like he saw him around, but it still felt a little bit insta-lovey. There's a lot of like internalized homophobia. I really like seeing the double perspective of parents who support their kids and others who don't, or at least not as much. Other than that it was a little bit insta-lovey, I don't really have a lot of complaints at all.
One eternity later.
Hi everyone. It is the 2nd of March, and I first started this vlog the 10th of February, but I have to say that I took a break from romance. February is already a short month, but it felt so fast. January felt more slow, if you know what I mean. Apart from the fact that I was kind of slumpy in February, I just wanted to change genre. And I read On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I talked about it in my February wrap-up. And then, after On the Come Up, I read A Court of Silver Flames. I did an entire video about it. And I was thinking, this is a fantasy romance. I could have included this book in this vlog because it's really concentrated on the romance between Nesta and Cassian, but I was thinking it's more of a fantasy. I haven't included that one in this video, but it is a romance, so if you're interested, go check out my thoughts. Sorry, my camera was dying again, so I put on some makeup while it was charging. Anyway, I have started the other romance books in February, but I have not completed them, you know. I have started Get a Life Chloe Brown on Scribd. I am like 100 pages in and I'm really enjoying it. It is about this plus size, black, disabled woman. I think she's in her 30s. Anyway, she wants to change her life because something shocking has happened to her. She was almost in an accident, so she decided that she wanted to change some things in her life, and the first thing that she changes is get an apartment. And at this place where there are these apartments, there is this guy, Red, who, you know, fixes things around in the building, and there is like a, they don't like each other. There's kind of like a hate to love situation happening, but it's not really hate. It's like they're making fun of each other, you know, bickering. The disability, let me just search it. I don't remember how to pronounce it. Fibromyalgia. I think it's pronounced that way. And I believe it's like chronic pain because she has a difficult time moving her body. The third book that I started in February was Birthday Girl. I haven't read much. I read like 80 pages. But from what I'm understanding, it's about this girl who is 19 who works at a bar, who is in a relationship with this guy who at the very beginning of this novel forgets to pick her up from work. So she goes to the cinema to watch a movie, and she meets a guy, this older man, who is watching this 80s movie with her, and they start talking. But when they get out of the theaters, Jordan, I believe her name is Jordan, gets a call from her boyfriend telling that he's been arrested because he was partying. And the same call is received by the guy who was in the cinema with her. So we discover that that guy is actually her boyfriend's dad. So he has been arrested, but they bail him out, and now they don't have their apartment anymore because the owner decided to kick them out because he was kind of destroying that apartment, and now they live with his dad. And we all know what's going to happen because Jordan is helping him and the boyfriend isn't doing much. He's sleeping all day, getting drunk, and then going to work on the car, whatever he does. And she spends a lot of time with the dad. And that's it. That's all I know right now. The last book that was on this list was The Best of Me, which I did not touch at all in February, but I started it at midnight basically on the 1st of March, so the other day, and I am on page 173, so I'm reading this. And my update on this book is it's kind of boring. It's not painfully boring, but it is boring because there is a lot of tell and not show. Like at the very beginning we get two point of views, the point of view of the male character and the female character, and they tell us basically their entire lives in the first chapter. There's a lot of info dump. The plot of this book is these two characters, Dawson and Amanda, were boyfriend and girlfriend in high school in 1984. He is from a bad family. Everyone has been into jail, they do drugs, and they use violence against others, you know. And Amanda is from a rich family, so we get that Romeo and Juliet vibe. They are together throughout junior and senior year, but her parents don't want them together at all. They want her to go to college, and if she stays with him, they're not going to pay college and all that, you know. There's this thing happening. And then Dawson decides to break the relationship because he wants her to have a happy life. And then 25 years later, a mutual friend dies, and so they go back to their town and to go to the funeral, and they meet each other again, and all of a sudden it's like they're back in love. It's been 25 years. She has created her own life, and there has to be some kind of restraint there, you know. You don't just jump right back into it after 25 years. The next couple of chapters we see some random POVs by the other people, other family members, and then we see them talking to each other and explaining whatever happened in these 25 years. So we're listening to the same story over and over again. and I'm predicting that something bad is gonna happen because his family isn't good, and obviously some romance is going to happen. By the way, the last names of these characters, Dawson's last name is Cole, and Amanda's last name is Collier. So Cole and Collier. And then there are this other couple, Bennett and Bonner. I found that funny for some reason. You know, they kind of rhyme and they look similar, the last names. We're back and I'm in the same spot. But I have finished 3 books. I have finished The Best of Me, Marry Me, and Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I just have to finish Birthday Girl and I'm done. So The Best of Me, how am I going to review this? First of all, I'm gonna say that I gave it 2 stars, and I want to talk about the 2 main characters and the romance because this is a romance vlog. Before I talk about that, I want to say that I read this in Italian, and if you're bilingual, you know that there are some terms, there are some words that are very hard to translate because they don't kind of exist in the other language. For example, here in America or in English speaking countries, we say vibes a lot. That thing has that vibes, and it's not really a thing in Italian, so it was weird to read about, and you know, stuff like that. Also, as I said, very info dumpy, a lot of POVs, which at the end makes sense, but during the story you really don't care about the girlfriend of the cousin of Dawson, you know? So it was weird. Let's talk about Amanda and Dawson. She said a few things that bothered me. She was with Dawson. I mean, it's not a spoiler. We can all guess that there was going to be something between the two. So she was with Dawson, and when her phone rang, because she does have kids, when her phone rang, she was so bothered by her other life that she had, and I'm like, and she kept saying that Dawson was her true love. It was a weekend. You saw each other for 2 days after 25 years. So that kind of felt weird for me because after 25 years, you are strangers without, you know, you haven't talked in 25 years. And in 2 days, you are already back in love like teenagers. So that was weird. Dawson, on the other hand, I liked him a little bit more, but he is like very numb and depressed. I don't know, because something happens to him when he was young, and he keeps that with him, and he obsesses over that for his entire life, which is understandable. The romance, not for me, as I said, because there's cheating. And I don't like cheating. In the last part, she kind of said, oh, we were in love, but not lovers. And I'm like, I wouldn't say that. I have to say that this book is so depressing. So depressing. Something happens, and I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but it is depressing. And we get why we see all those POVs in the end. Also, if you read this book, you may understand when I say that there are a lot of tropes in this book that we've seen before, or at least I've seen before in different movies and different stories. This was written in 2011, 12, so I guess they weren't that popular. I'm not sure, but a lot of the things that happened in this book I saw in a lot of other different medias, and the ending, I predicted it. Once a particular thing happened, I was like, no, absolutely not. For a moment, I thought it was going to be like Regretting You, but it didn't, and ended up being another thing. But that other thing I predicted as well, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. It's not a 1 star because, you know, I don't think it's as bad as this. And there was this kind of magical realism thing because Dawson kept seeing a ghost. We then discover who this ghost is, but that was weird too. Text letters were useless. You know what? It's not horrible, but it wasn't for me. a lot of things that I've seen before, and I wasn't a fan of the romance. So, Marry Me. I had a hard time reading this book. It's very short, it's 150 pages, but I felt like DNFing it a few times, but in the end I decided to push through and finish it. Obviously this is not a romance novel by any means. It's nonfiction. It's about famous couples and their proposals. And I noticed that at the end of this book there is a bibliography and credits, so it's not like entirely the author's fault. It's maybe the way they wrote it bothered me too, but obviously the info in here was taken by other things, other media. The other 100 pages that I read, still there were a lot of misogynistic things. So let me just read you another couple quotes. We have Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott. He needed a woman who would be at home for him and not thinking about her own career. And there were a lot of errors in this book. For example, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, they kept writing Jack instead of John. They kind of tried to highlight some feminist aspects by saying, for example, in different stories, that the woman didn't promise to obey the man during the wedding. Marilyn Monroe promised to love, honor, and cherish, but not obey. There were also a lot of weird terminology, like I don't remember who, but they said at the very end, she produced by natural birth. That was weird. Is it just me? Also, there was all that talk about age gap romances in this. Especially when the man is like 20 or 30 years older than the woman. But yeah, my point is, it wasn't a big deal. But there were a couple of stories in which the woman was older than the man. And they kept saying that. When the man is older than the woman, that's not a problem. And when the woman is older than the man by like 10 years, 15 years, that's a problem. That's weird. Hillary Clinton was an au naturel beauty without makeup, and she was pressured to take Clinton's last name. The patriarchy, man. I hate it. You know what? These things may have been true, and I may have read only facts, but I just didn't enjoy my time reading this. And I don't like reading about misogynistic things. It makes me angry. Last book I'm gonna talk to you about today is Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and I am so happy to tell you that I found a romance that I enjoyed. I gave this 5 stars. Finally, a good rating. I was expecting to enjoy this more than any other book I've read in this vlog, and that kind of happened, at least so far. Unless I enjoy Birthday Girl more than this. This is my favorite that I've read for this vlog. It was funny, it had good representation, and I love that her being overweight wasn't the problem. She was just Chloe. I liked Chloe. She overthinked a lot, but I'm like that. Because they both went through a lot of things during their lifetime, they kind of had some walls, especially Chloe. She was kind of hesitant going into this relationship, but I just really loved their banter. I laughed so much. As I said, it's so funny. I think I never actually laughed out loud so much reading a book, especially if it's a romance. I think I do like hate to love, but not a hate that it's toxic. As I said, this is not like hate. This is hate, I'm making fun of you, you know, in a playful way. I hate when it's like a toxic hate, and Red is not toxic at all. He is kind of intimidating. He's an intimidating character because he has that bad boy appearance, but he's actually very nice. He is so sweet and so caring. I love him. He was horny sometimes, and there are a lot of smutty scenes, a lot of explicit smutty scenes, so be aware of that. There was a cat in this book, and a possible female friendship. I like that. Like Chloe was a very lonely person, and now she is slowly meeting people. She met Red, she met Annie, and she has a loving family. I love the sisters, I love the grandma. I can't wait to read the other books, and yes, I may buy them this time because I do want to add them to my collection. It is so British. This book is so British. They were talking about s'mores when they were camping. And they didn't know what they were. They were just copying the American films. And yeah, I love that Red just loved her the way she was. Trigger warnings for an abusive relationship. And it was good to see the male point of view of abusive relationships, you know? And like in every book, there has to be some sort of conflict. But it was random. And there was a miscommunication situation, but it was resolved quickly. Thank goodness. It happened so quickly, it resolved so quickly, so it wasn't painful, it wasn't bad, and I just thought it was such a cute book. And at the end, after the conflict happened, I got emotional and I kind of teared up. I never cry reading books, so that's a sign that I really enjoyed this book. I laughed, I cried. I can say that this romance I enjoyed. The other books, I enjoyed other aspects more than the romance, but in this one, the romance was amazing. 5 stars. I will talk to you in my next clip in which I talk about Birthday Girl, and we'll wrap this up already. So, talk to you later. Hi, so I finished Birthday Girl. Let me just get my notes. I think I'm going to give it 3 stars, maybe 2.5. I don't know, but this is what I'm leaning towards. So I already talked about the summary of the book, so we know what's going on. I didn't take this book too seriously because we know from the summary what, you know, is going to happen. So I was like, okay, let's go with it. The taboo-ness of it all. But at the end, the age gap wasn't a big problem for me. I mean, I read Marry Me. There was worse. The age gap is, I think, 19 years. So she is half his age. But anyway, that wasn't the biggest problem. There are 2 other things that were more cringy than this. First of all, the main character Jordan, who is a student in college and works at a bar because she's poor. She is not like other girls. She loves the 80s, which is great because, I mean, she ends up liking a guy who grew up in the 80s. She likes different things that not normal teenagers like. And she also gives me Bella Swan vibes. There was one scene in which she was in the pool underwater and I was like, this is Bella Swan. She won't give in to her sister's requests in accepting a job at the strip club because her sister is a stripper, so she is not like those girls and she won't do it, which is okay, acceptable, but you know, there was one thing that bothered me that I will talk about. And even though we had this impression that she was more mature than other people her age, there were some scenes in which she acted like a teenager, which is understandable. Oh, and she also threatened to pack up and leave from the house like 5 times. Pike, he's the dad. I don't like him. He has no personality. I mean, not a lot of characters do in this book, but he is a loner. He hasn't been in a relationship since he had Cole, so it gave me the best of me vibes. So he works a lot and then goes home, and his house is described as having no personality because he never unpacked his personal stuff, and you know, he was kind of boring, especially at the beginning. And then, and this is what makes me cringe more than the age gap, he treated her like a child. Okay that you're 19 years older, but at least treat her like an adult, you know? If you treat her like a child, like a little girl, a brat, that makes it cringy, you know what I mean? He forbids her from doing things. Like, there are a few times in which she wanted to do some stuff and he was like, nope, not happening. And I'm like, you're not her dad. and she's not a minor, thank goodness. He was very possessive and overprotective, but I am very, very particular on these things, so it's maybe it's just me. The other thing that bothered me more than the age gap was the fact that obviously Pike and Cole are related, but they already have a bad relationship because Cole believed her mom when she talked about his dad in a bad way, and so there's a bad relationship from the beginning. And we know what's going to happen, so the relationship is going to get even worse. But the fact that Cole wasn't in his thoughts, and he wasn't even physically there most of the time, he was a very absent character since the beginning. And Cole is supposed to be Jordan's best friend, more than a boyfriend. He is her best friend because they went through something together, you know, and we don't really see that. Since the beginning, he's just gone. And I would have loved him to be more present physically and in their thoughts, because they kind of didn't care after one point. He was just that bad dude and convenient things happen, you know. I wanted to see more of that. Let's talk about the romance. The romance was fine. There were a lot of cute moments, like when they went on, you know, that ride in the car in the mud. That was cute. There were a lot of cute scenes. The only thing I can say is that at one point they didn't care anymore. For being a secret relationship, they made it very obvious, but okay. It's fine. So the reason why it's called Birthday Girl is the story begins on Jordan's birthday and it ends on Jordan's birthday, apart from the epilogue. But yeah, and she also loves lighting candles. She lights candles every single day, and when she blows the candle, she makes a wish every day. So that's the reason why it's called Birthday Girl. There were a lot of descriptions on how tan they were. I just wanted to mention that, like, every single day they became tanner and tanner and tanner. I mean, it's set in the summer, but I hope they're wearing sunscreen because wrinkles. Anyway, last thing, and this is the thing that bothered me the most, and that was the description of women. Every single woman in this book was either a stripper or a nosy neighbor who obviously was attracted to Pike. They were described as very slutty in the way they dressed, and the way they acted. I am gonna read you a couple of quotes because just to give you an idea, but there are way more. Cole tells Jordan at one point, be a girlfriend tonight, because she was complaining about something and he was, you know, he just wanted to kiss and do stuff. Also, Jordan was forced to take off her shirt twice in this book, just saying. Then there's Pike, who said to Jordan, I need you to do everything a good girl does for a man. Is that supposed to be sexy or romantic? I don't know. Then he also says to Jordan, men will get ideas, because she was wearing a corset. They'll think they have a free pass and they can touch what belongs to my son. You're embarrassing him. And I'll leave it at that because, you know, that's enough. I give it 3 stars on Goodreads, 2.5. I don't know. Overall, let's wrap this up. Do I like romance? I do. I really, really liked Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This is my ranking of the books that I've read. I'm not a romance booktuber, but I do like certain types of romance for sure. I already told you why I enjoyed Get a Life, Chloe Brown more than the others. But yeah, overall, I had 1 5 stars, 1 4 star, 2 3 star, and 1 2 star. Oh, and 1 1 star. So I had like 1 of each. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a long one. But what is your favorite romance? Let me know down below, and I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye!